Hello.
Oh,
Look, you've got a cat. And
oh, cute.
I was going to sit on that beanbag.
What are you going to do now? Sit cross-legged on the floor?
I'm squatting on the floor in my dressing gown.
Can you hear Diana purring? Oh, she keeps attacking the microphone. You'll have to get down. Get down, Diana. Bye.
Well, that went well, didn't it? Everything crashing around your ears. You all right today?
I'm very good, thanks, Richard. Yes.
Oh, sorry, Kat. I'm going to have to move you because I need to sit down. Go on, back off, fatso. Oh, she's the fat one. The vet told her to lose weight.
Really?
Yeah, she was weighed, and she's very.
Wink.
Well, she eats her other. The other cat's
She's
food
the other
as well
cat,
as her own.
unfortunately.
Yeah,
That's right. There's a high churn of cats in your house. Shall we start recording pod number 16?
I'd love to.
And shall we get introduced by Shane Rimmer again? Because I quite like that.
Well, yeah, wouldn't that be great? It's always lovely to hear from Shane.
Okay, Shane, over to you.
This is Shane Rimmer, and you are listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Here we are again. Happy as can be.
I'm quite happy. You seem quite happy.
I'm very
you're
happy.
in your dressing gown still.
I'm still in my dressing gown.
On the drying rack just behind you, that is a very nice
Yeah.
piggy tea towel you've got.
You like that, do you? Can you name some of the breeds as I point to
No,
them?
because I
What's
can't
that one there?
see any of the ones you're pointing at.
We've got a Tamworth, we've got a Welsh, we've got a small white, we've got a saddleback, a pot-bellied, a large white, a landrace, a British lob. Oh,
Fantastic. Who says there's no educational content on the Gerry Anderson podcast?
yeah. Quite a few people, I think,
is
actually.
that's the majority of the feedback this week. Anyway, Richard,
Yes, enough of
who are
pigs.
you?
Oh, I'm Richard James, and who are
Back
you?
to pigs. I'm Jamie Anderson, and welcome to the Gerry Anderson podcast. Usual
Yes.
weekly dose of Gerry Anderson nonsense. But what kind of nonsense, Richard?
Well, all sorts of only the best purveyors of nonsense. The best nonsense is welcome here. We've got all the usual stuff. We've got, of course, listeners' emails coming up, just a few this week, because we've got lots of news and a great interview coming up with Jamie.
Oh, with Mike Tucker, who you may not know his name. You should do. But if you don't, if you've watched, Red Dwarf or Doctor Who, then chances are you've seen some of his very fine model work. And he's also joining
absolutely.
us on the crew of Firestorm, so has done more fine model work for that. But we'll be covering all of that stuff and more in that chat later.
Excellent. We've also got the Randomizer from Chris Dale. Rather enjoyed last week's Space Precinct episode. That was quite fun. But let's see what he is presented with this week. And then we also have, of course, the news from the Gerry Anderson universe. Yeah, pigs and cats and things notwithstanding, of course.
I promise not to do any animal-related news this week.
That's a shame. And in the meantime, you can get in touch with us. You can send in your comments, questions to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. You can please rate, review us, subscribe and share on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And we do like it to if you can tweet as well. I know Jamie's been asking over the last couple of weeks if you can take a screenshot of whatever platform you're listening to us on your mobile or on your device,
had
and if you can
loads.
tweet
We've
that.
had loads.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, we had Paddy Fancy posted a picture on Twitter and said obligated to post a screenshot of me listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast, Pod 14. I mean, it's not an obligation, is it? It's
Well,
just a request.
it's a request, but obviously you should feel slightly guilty if you haven't done it.
Well, obviously. Because the great thing is, everyone else, of course, can then see what you're listening to, and they might give it a whirl as well. Peter Kemmerer got in touch on Twitter to say, quality podcast entertainment. Thank you very much for that, Peter. So we do like to see your comments on Twitter as well. You can follow me at Richard N. James. You can follow Jamie at Jamie. No, what is yours again? It's something complicated.
I'm Jamie Anderson. I am.
It's Jamie Anderson.
Jamie Anderson. You know,
Im. You should put the apostrophe before the I. Yeah, that's great. And of course, at Gerry Anderson TV as well, and all sorts of other places where you can catch up with Firestorm and so on. That I'm sure Jamie will let us know in good time.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna bore you with some Firestorm stuff in the news, which we should do imminently.
Fantastic. Just before you do, somewhere else to leave a comment is on the YouTube channel, on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel, where Jamie uploads our podcasts alongside all sorts of other interesting stuff. We have a comment on the Firestorm YouTube channel, which I know Jamie has just started. It says, fingers, toes, and just about everything else crossed that this project is going to come off. So glad that I contributed and got this the start that it needed. Now we just need the networks to believe in this as much as we all do. Come on, open your eyes and see the quality products before you.
Gosh,
so
that's lovely.
Yes.
Thanks very much for that comment.
Isn't it? Enthusiastic.
And thank you for being one of our Kickstarter backers.
Yes.
Whether
Absolutely.
you were or weren't, you'll be excited by the news coming next, I think.
Wow.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. Otherwise, it's a bit of a damp squib. Or a damp squid, as a friend of mine used to call it.
Right, well, fingers crossed for no damp squids in the news. Shall we go to the news now?
Yes.
Okay, over to you, Gordon.
Hi, Gordon Tracy speaking. It's time for the Gerry Anderson News.
Newsy news.
Lots of newsy news.
Always.
Now, look, we're sort of news. It is news, but Thunderbirds Day, International Thunderbirds Day, has just been and gone. So
Yeah.
we hope
Old
you
news.
enjoyed it. But it kind of isn't. It kind of isn't because,
Yeah.
assuming you're still listening to this on Monday the 1st of October at some time in the morning, UK time, then there is still time to be part of it. So we've got special Thunderbirds Day T-shirts on the Gerry Anderson store, highly limited editions. You can only order them today, and after today, being Monday the 1st of October, that's it. They
Cool.
are gone, and they will be printed to
Wow.
order. So get your special thing now. We've also
That's harsh.
it's not harsh. It's exciting. It's
But it is.
exciting.
No. Okay.
I think it's
okay.
exciting.
You say exciting. I
Fine,
say
okay.
harsh.
To accompany that, you can also get some crazy, massive savings in the massive Thunderbirds Day sale, which is still going on until the end of tonight, 11:59 p.m. on the 1st of October, British summertime. And
Woo!
the Thunderbirds on Twitch marathon is still going on right now as this podcast is released.
That's
So
extraordinary,
if
isn't
you're
it?
listening on Monday the 1st of October, go to twitch.tv/Gerry Anderson TV, where we are hosting Shout and ITV's Thunderbirds Marathon, where you can watch all the episodes, plus the Thunderbirds 1965 episodes, with fans all over the
Cool.
world and chat in real time.
Yeah, and us probably.
And, well, we will be dipping in and out. I'll be dipping in and out.
Yeah.
Which could make
Yeah.
for an interesting recording of Fab Live, which is also
Yes.
happening tonight. Goodness me, this
Yes.
is a
now
busy day.
I am going to have your full and undivided attention on Fab Live this evening, aren't I, Jamie? You're not going to be watching Thunderbirds.
Absolutely. I will not
Of course
be
I am.
watching anything other than
No.
what we're doing. Anyway, Richard.
No. Quite right too.
Lo-
because I'm making the effort to come all the way to you on the train.
Yes.
Okay, so I want a bit of attention, please.
I will give you plenty of attention.
Right.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Anyway, if you aren't watching Thunderbirds on Twitch tonight, on Monday the 1st of October, do come along to the Gerry Anderson Facebook page and watch Fab Live instead, where we
Yes.
won't be talking about Thunderbirds on Twitch at all, possibly.
I reckon, though. You could even watch them both, couldn't you? You could probably, have that double screen thing and have it
could do
going
two
on one
screens,
side
yeah.
and watch Fab Live on the other and to join in both. Why
Yeah,
not?
that would be really fun.
Yeah, could be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you are going to do that, let us know, and
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting tonight. Anyway, if you're listening to this later on, you can go back and rewatch Fab Live. It's on our YouTube channel and the Gerry Anderson website and more. Anyway, I've got more Fab news
Oh, it just
for
keeps
Thunderbirds
coming.
fans. So sorry if you're not a
Yes.
Thunderbirds fan. Most of you probably are, though. We've also got some amazing other new Thunderbirds releases, including, those hoodies, Richard, the lovely Thunderbirds hoodies, which we've had out this year.
Yeah,
We're
I do.
transferring
Lovely
those
things.
designs onto T-shirts because so many people have requested them, so they are also available now. And coming up,
Great.
we've got some amazing Hanes cutaway designs coming up too on t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more. So watch this space. Also, if you've got merch you'd like to see, what this comes up in listener emails shortly, let us know. podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We can't promise anything, but we will try. Moving on from Thunderbirds, this weekend just gone was also Joe 90's 50th anniversary.
Oh, and I bet you celebrated hard, didn't you, James? Did you have a few drinks? Did you reminisce?
I did my very own Joe 90 marathon at home, where I ran 26 miles and threw them in a landfill.
As far away from your Joe 90 DVD collection as possible.
No, I have watched some Joe 90 actually over the weekend. So, I'm still quite enjoying some elements of it. Anyway, lots of you are Joe 90 fans, and you may have seen, obviously, that Network have put the very first volume of Joe 90 on Blu-ray up for pre-order. So if you want to pre-order that, it's at networkonair.com. It'll be released volume by volume, and we don't know anything about kind of what will happen at the end of the set of volumes, whether there'll be any special sort of packaging or anything like that. Based on the Captain Scarlet one, there might be.
It'd be nice to think so.
Fingers tightly crossed for that. So go and pre-order that. Firestorm news coming from 50 years ago to the present day.
Yes.
You may have seen the announcement that, you probably have seen the announcement or heard us talk about it previously, that on the 27th of October, Firestorm's getting its world physical premiere at MCM Comic Con in London. But also, because there are so many of you all over the world who can't make it to London, immediately after the physical premiere, we're going to do a digital premiere for all of you on Facebook and YouTube from about 1:30, 1:40 p.m. On Saturday, 27th of October. So make sure you watch that. There will be on Facebook a kind of premiere event which you can subscribe to make sure you get there. We'll try and do something similar on YouTube. But either way, it's Firestorm HQ on Facebook or YouTube, and you will be able to see it. And we must quickly just thank everybody who has been part of the project so far, and our amazing Kickstarter backers who got us started way back to get us to this point. Kickstarter backers, you will get your DVDs and Blu-rays ahead of the premiere, so you'll have all the lovely behind the scenes stuff, all the extras, all the galleries and stuff that nobody else is going to see, and a physical copy which nobody else is going to get, so you will have that ahead of time, as well as your backers t-shirts. So if you do come to the MCM event, make sure you wear it. Come along, because we're going to get all of you to stand up and get a round of applause when you're there. So that's the Firestorm news.
Wow, that's incredible. So Firestorm goes public on the 27th of October. That's amazing. I mean, look, I haven't said it yet. Can I say it now?
I don't know what you're going to say.
I haven't said it throughout the whole of this podcast. So can I say it now?
What are you saying?
There is new Gerry Anderson stuff being made right now.
You do say that every week, don't you?
That is so exciting, though. I can't believe I get to say it every week.
It's very exciting.
It's fantastic.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, and always will be.
So there you go. If you want to follow Firestorm's progress, Firestorm HQ on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and SF9 Firestorm on Twitter. And there'll be even more news coming up. And obviously, in our interview coming up in a little bit, then Mike Tucker will also be talking about Firestorm. So Firestorm aplenty.
Lovely. That's really good.
I think
fantastic.
That's all the news for this week, but that's quite a lot, I'd say.
I mean, really, that's too much. Sure about that? Before we move on?
I'm done.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Well done. So that's all very exciting. Remember, coming up, we do have that interview with Mike Tucker. And, of course, you can listen to all our previous interviewees that Jamie and I have met over the past few weeks. Months now. Yes, the likes of Lee Sullivan, Sophie Aldred, Sophia Miles, Gary Newman, Lisa Mazimbo, Shane Rimmer was last week. We've had Chris Packham. I mean, they're coming thick and fast, and you can catch them all on our previous podcasts, and you can do that by finding us on whatever platform you're listening to us on, subscribing so you get notifications every time we do a new episode, and please do rate us and review us and share us with all your friends. That would be lovely.
Please.
And do remember, we've also got Chris Dale coming up with his fantastic randomizer a little later on. I think it might be time, though, Jamie, for some listener emails, mightn't it?
Oh, okay, fine. Shall I delve into the e-post bag?
Ooh. The e-post bag. Oh, there it is. That's rather special, isn't it? Did you make that yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, shall I just put my hand in and see what I can pull out? Okay. Aha! Right, calling Gerry Anderson podcast. Calling Gerry Anderson podcast. Come in, please. Well, this must be Lawrence Cox, because he often starts his emails like that, so I'm told. I was a 90s Anderson kid, discovering Thunderbirds, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, and Joe 90 through the reruns on the BBC. He says, my parents helped me to make the Blue Peter Tracy Island for all my Thunderbirds toys, and I loved it so much it was still in my room and intact when I packed for university. Well, that makes it sound like, Lawrence, something has happened to it since. So, do you still have your Tracy Island that you made yourself? I came across the podcast a couple of weeks ago when iTunes recommended it to me in some bizarre blip, and I've subsequently binged every episode.
Fantastic.
The interviews have been fascinating, and I've loved the Randomizer, both for reminiscing on shows I've seen and learning about the ones I
That's
haven't.
one of the reasons we do it. Lovely.
Yeah. Through the podcast, I found out that several of the Super Marination shows were available on Amazon Prime streaming. So I just spent my Saturday morning introducing my 8-year-old to Thunderbirds. He loved it so much, he immediately ran off to play it with his own marionette
Fantastic.
puppet. Looking forward to the next episode, Lawrence. That's really nice. He sent us that little picture as well, didn't he? Which was quite sweet of his son with the puppet.
Yeah, with a birdie, emu-y puppet. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
not Thunderbird specific, but I just love that though. Isn't that great? We hear all this stuff about kids. They just they really need like this sort of high energy, rapidly edited CGI stuff. They're not interested in that old stuff. And then you stick a current 8-year-old in front of a 53-year-old show, and they love it.
Yeah. I know, of course they do. It's
come on, I mean,
it?
it speaks volumes, and also makes me feel more passionate than ever about Firestorm and its amazing potential.
Yes.
So,
absolutely right.
Now, Richard, I've got this other thing from the post bag here.
Oh, yeah.
Hang on,
Wow.
it's quite heavy. Hang on.
Do you want a hand with that? Can you manage? Oh,
okay.
Oh, God.
So this is quite a weighty tome we received from Elliot
is.
Webb. Now, Elliot, it's brilliant. You've reminisced and given us some all sorts of stories and nostalgia, some rememberings, anecdotes.
Yes.
But it's so much. I think it needs its own podcast. So,
great.
I haven't had time to edit it down, but I'm going to go through for the highlights, and we'll go through the highlights next week.
That's lovely. Or maybe it could be like one of those part works that you see advertised on the TV.
First part, just 50p.
That's right. All other parts, £50.
Yeah, 250 issues.
Yeah.
So,
that's great. So,
Elliot, thank you. If you are going to email us into the podcast, to make sure we can fit the emails in, please keep them relatively short, like two or three paras max, probably, because we really want to read them, but we just cannot read this 373-page tome. So
exactly.
Elliot, we'll come back to you next week. But I do have a shorter email here from Mark Wilson, Richard. Mm-hmm. Mark says, surely there must be plans for a Captain Scarlet Bluetooth headset with a flip-down microphone. Can't wait for the pilot screening of Firestorm. Didn't know about the Kickstarter, but you carrying on your father's legacy is an inspiration. Good luck with getting a series. You all deserve it, the whole team. I used to loathe Monday mornings at work, but your podcast made me look forward to getting in my van and streaming it as soon as I leave the yard. I only wish there could be a daily podcast, guys, and a thumbs up emoji.
Well,
Mark, that's lovely. Thank you so much.
Isn't that nice? Thank you, Mark. That's great. Keep your eyes on the road, though.
Absolutely do.
It does worry me.
Yeah,
people driving and listening to us.
I know. Well, then they might fall asleep like we had in the previous one. Right. No, Mark. So, Mark, in order of your questions and statements there, surely there must be plans for a Scarlet Bluetooth headset. I don't think there are. I mean, I think one of the things with the Bluetooth headset is that it's sort of convenient and small, whereas a giant Spectrum issue cap with flip-down microphone, which would probably break, might be a bit difficult. But it would be lovely if it did exist in some form at some point.
Who
if
knows?
it crops up, I'll let you know. On the Firestorm stuff, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Does that mean we're going to see you at MCM Comic Con? I do hope so. And on the daily podcast, Richard, have you got time for a daily? But I don't think we've got time.
Actually, I mean, come January, I might well have time to do a daily podcast when I should be gainfully unemployed. But for now, no, I'm afraid not.
As much as we'd love to. But
absolutely.
hopefully this is enough to keep you
I've
through the
also
week. Go on, Richard. Sorry.
That's all right. No, just another couple of comments. That's all. Gray Hall got in touch on Twitter saying that you just remind me there when Mark said about he listens in the van. Well, Gray Hall spends the morning listening to us at his workbench, which I think is rather nice. Don't know
what's he doing at the workbench.
What his work might be. Well, I don't know.
Oh, would you believe my phone's going now?
Is that someone important, or is it Nicholas Briggs?
Hello.
Is that Jamie Anderson?
I'm just recording the podcast. Can I call you back in?
I wondered if you've had an accident
minutes?
that wasn't your fault. Oh, would you like?
Fantastic. All right, speak to you later.
Bye.
Oh. Richard, that's really unhelpful because I can hear you in my ear. Anyway, shall we carry on?
But also Robert Monk also got in touch with a rather nice comment on Twitter. Thanks for this, Robert. He said he was watching an episode of Lovejoy because he wanted to watch Dudley Sutton, who passed away, an actor who died just a couple weeks ago, when out of nowhere Xenia Merton turns up.
Oh.
Yeah, who we also lost.
We're going to have this more and more, though, sadly.
Yeah, I know. As the years pass, I know that's true. Also, comment on our iTunes kind of page, but I had to sort of screen grab it and print it, so it's really faint. So it's from NJ Ogden. I stumbled across the podcast from a link on Facebook, and I'm so glad I did. It's a great weekly podcast that feels like you're talking about your favourite shows, both as a kid and now with friends. The banter and relationship between Jamie and Richard, or is it Richard and Jamie, in joke, is natural and fun. Isn't it?
We're natural and fun.
We're certainly aiming for natural, and fun is always
Absolutely.
a bonus. The information and interviews are excellent, really open up the world of Gerry Anderson's work to all generations. My favourite section has to be the Randomizer. This is to slightly atone for the message we got last week about Robert, I think it was, falling asleep during the Randomizer. But NJ Ogden says it's always entertaining and leaves me wanting to watch the said episodes covered.
Brilliant.
If you're a fan of any Anderson show, then this is the podcast for you. So
that is lovely. And that has taken us to 100 reviews on iTunes.
Yes, I saw your tweet.
That was a brilliant number, so thank you everybody who's reviewed us. If you hadn't reviewed us yet, help us get to 200. That would be even better.
Yeah,
obviously.
that's
twice
right.
as good, some might say.
Well, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so thanks for all your questions and comments. You can drop us a line, of course, as ever, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we'll try our best to read out your lovely emails. Oh, and audio files as well, which we have none of this week. But we do like to hear your audio files. Very easy to do. Pop it on your phone and just send it as a MP3 or something, or a WAV file.
Just email it,
like
M4A file, whatever format your phone sends voice notes in, we'll be able to put it in. So,
great.
Richard, shall we hear from somebody else?
I think that's probably very wise.
Well, I mean, I'm afraid it's got a bit of me in it, but it's mostly our guest interviewee, Mike Tucker.
Great, let's hear that then.
Mike is a well-known model maker involved with Doctor Who, Red Dwarf and many more things, long-time Anderson fan, worked with Peter Ragg, who was one of the key model and effects people on Thunderbirds. So lots of interesting stuff from Mike, recorded as usual in a slightly
in a restaurant.
In fact, we recorded this at BAFTA, but we were busy having a couple of wines. Anyway, so
how the other half live.
Here he is, it's Mike Tucker.
So, I'm Mike Tucker. I'm a miniature effects supervisor.
I love that, Mike. It just gives the impression of a tiny person.
Well, I am. I'm tiny Mike Tucker. The miniature effects supervisor.
Brilliant.
I run a company called The Model Unit, based at Ealing Studios, which I've done since 2005. Prior to that, I was a member of the BBC's famous in-house visual effects department, which is where I got all my training and worked on shows like the obvious ones like Doctor Who, Red Dwarf, but also things that people don't always expect. Tomorrow's World, Top of the Pops, Last of the Summer Wine, EastEnders, Casualty. So the list of stuff that I've worked on is actually sort of quite wide. It's just the sci-fi shows that everyone tends to go, oh, there must be effects in those programs, and they're right, they're the obvious ones, but it's probably the more invisible effects that occasionally catch people a bit more by surprise.
I have to say I'm caught by surprise by Last of the Summer Wine. What did you do in Last of the Summer Wine?
I built a couple of the devices that Compo heads down a hill. I think one of the first things I did, he's on roller skates with a wind-powered sort of sail made out of sackcloth, and of course the wind catches it and off he goes at speed. So an episode called Wind Power. So I built that for Last of the Summer Wine. Sort of Casualty, we did a plane crash sequence. Stuff always needs snow and rain, and that was the lovely thing about the effects department. You didn't specialise as a model maker. You were an effects artist, and that meant you did a little bit of everything. So I did get to do Top of the Pops doing dry ice for Zig Zig Sputnik and Patsy Kensit and people like that.
Amazing.
Tomorrow's World, we were building all these demonstration models. EastEnders, things like the Queen Vic Fire. And that sort of carried on even with the model unit. I mean, before Doctor Who, most of my work was really doing stuff like documentaries about Hiroshima or Krakatoa or the volcano that destroyed Atlantis. It was all big natural disaster programs. Even on Doctor Who, it's been strange. We've done very little spacecraft work for the new series.
Yeah.
It's been things like Big Ben being destroyed or Rose's tower blocks exploding, or it's all been real world things, mainly because the show became so real world focused. Whereas you go back to the work I was doing with Sylvester, and it was like Bannerman spacecraft, Glitz's spacecraft, Cyberman spacecraft. So bit of a change.
Yeah, variety.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a key word for your career then.
Which is lovely, because that gives you a background in. By the time you sort of end up sort of sitting down with a new project, you've got this wealth of sort of stuff you can draw on. Oh, I remember working with so and so on that, and I got to work with dozens of really clever effects designers like Peter Ragg, of course, who'd worked on Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds, and Colin Mapson, who'd been the effects designer on things like The Hand of Fear and Image of the Fendal, and Matt Irvin and Tony Harding. So all these people were fantastic at imparting their knowledge. I think that was the lovely thing about the effects department. Nobody was precious about what they knew. They were all willing to sort of pass it on to a new generation.
Yeah, which is the way to do it, and to improve things and
you
cultivate those skills.
Because everyone sort of goes, well, we can take that knowledge and build on it, or just go back and go, well, why reinvent the wheel? Let's just do it the way it was done back in the 60s or the 20s,
Yeah.
And the stuff we did on Sharda, we redid new model work for Sharda.
Yeah, I've seen it, yes.
We did it exactly the way it would have been done back in '79. So all the models are hung on wires against star fields that are like black paper with pinprick stars. And all those techniques are effectively ones that Meddings was doing on the Century 21 shows. So it's lovely because nothing's changed. One of my favourite things is that when we did the Doctor Who 50th, when we did Day of the Doctor, we had a model TARDIS and model Daleks being shot in exactly the same way, in some ways, that you'd have done with a Hartnell story, a model TARDIS and a model Dalek. So there's a nice connection back across all this stuff.
Yeah, and well, so there should be, because models are really cool.
Yeah, and they have, the physics of using a model is inherent. You can't change it. It's going to do something unexpected, but it's also going to act the way that gravity and everything requires it to act. So there's an inherent realness to it.
Yeah.
If there is a problem with CGI, it's that you can turn off those inherent rules of physics and real world things. So, I would like Spider-Man to jump so fast that a real person couldn't do it. Well, let's just turn that off then, and we can make him do it.
Yeah.
But your brain is hardwired to know that you're now watching something wrong.
Absolutely. In the same way that your brain is able to automatically calculate the trajectory of a ball flying towards you so you can catch it, your brain is also wired to follow an object moving through a space in front of you.
So if you in the computer turn off or screw around with that trajectory, your brain automatically goes, well, that looks wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas when you blow up a model or let something fall or collapse, everything's going to act the way it should act.
Yep.
It's just that it's doing it slightly smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, you're preaching to the converted.
Indeed.
Well, we can get into the reasons why model miniature work is so good, but I would like to pop into your model TARDIS and go back in time to Mini Mike, and just obviously, since it's the Gerry Anderson podcast, I have to touch on your first Gerry Anderson viewing experience. If you can remember it doesn't have to be the exact time and date and episode, but your first impressions of watching any Gerry Anderson show.
Well, I was definitely a Thunderbirds kid. I'm age-wise, I'm roughly the same age as Thunderbirds. You know, the 50th anniversary of Thunderbirds, Doctor Who, and James Bond all hit about the same year as my 50th anniversary. So I'm definitely a Thunderbirds kid. I don't recall watching Fireball or Supercar. I do recall a little bit of Stingray because I can remember being fascinated by the voices of the Aquamphibians.
Yes.
And it's something that you could reproduce with a glass of fizzy pop and a drinking straw and do that bubbly thing. And I definitely would have watched it, but it's Thunderbirds, I think, was the one that really, really made an impression. So Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, those are the formative years ones, if you like, for me. And certainly I was getting things like the Dinky toys, the annuals, you know, in amongst, you know, my James Bond, Dinky Aston Martin, and my Doctor Who bump and go Daleks, and so all those things sort of came together. I don't think I'd necessarily at that point twigged that there was this career making all these. I just knew that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the stories. I enjoyed the spectacle. Thunderbirds particularly. I mean, it's got so much ambition and scope to it. I mean,
it is epic.
Truly epic, and 50 minutes. I mean, those long episodes just give it such a sort of feeling of being like a mini little feature film. And it's weird because you then respond to things like, well, I really like the Roger Moore, James Bonds, and you think, oh, well, it's Derek Meddings doing both. So there's definitely a theme that runs through it all. And then really it's sort of, once you get onto things like UFO and Space 1999, and Doctor Who has moved on to the Tom Baker era, and Blake Seven is coming in, that's when I'm starting to become aware of, oh, there's this backstory to all these things in terms of the unsung heroes who are making these models and filming them.
Somebody's putting these things together.
Yeah, and that's when I really started to become interested. You're also getting lots of behind-the-scenes documentaries for Star Wars and Close Encounters, so it really started to sort of crystallise in me, oh wow, there's possibly a job here making these things, and that's when the effect side of it became interesting. But yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, it's the Gerry Anderson shows start that process. And Thunderbirds is definitely the one it starts with.
Any favourite sequences, models, elements from Thunderbirds that
Crab logger, gotta be the crab logger.
It's normally Fireflash, that first episode landing, Sidewinder and Crab logger that everybody
Sidewinder, Sidewinder I liked. It's just, there's something about the legs on that didn't quite ring true for me. Whereas the crab logger, I absolutely believed in that thing. And the fact that it's, you know, chucking in logs at the front, and then when it rolls down a cliff at the end, it's just superb. And that's one of those things, it's like having got into that side of the hardware. By the time Captain Scarlet comes along, and you've got the SPV and the maximum security vehicle, all of which build on that sort of beautiful Mike Trim design work. So it's the big set piece Anderson vehicles that I always really responded to.
Same. I mean, I didn't have quite the same issue with Sidewinder that you did, but watching Pit of Peril over and over and over and over again as I was a kid, I think that was probably my most watched Thunderbirds VHS. Just the way it kind of lumbered, and the weight to the lumbering and the movement and stuff. Anyway, again, I'm preaching back to the converted, aren't I?
And then, of course, I'm trying to recreate that. You know, you start to sort of take your sort of action, sort of dinky toys out into the garden and go, well, how can I create this? And it does start a process that I think inevitably leads to where I've ended up.
Well, I was going to say that there is an element of Thunderbirds in particular where when you get your dinky toys or whatever, you can recreate it all because they're physical models acting under real physical forces, even if they're tiny.
That's right. And you could roll them down a cliff and you
crash them together. Which way bits will fly.
I mean, the truth is, by the time I reached sort of my late teens, I was also trying to recreate those explosive effects with match heads and homemade gunpowder and all that side of things.
Homemade explosives.
Which you can't really condone, but we had some very tolerant parents and a very encouraging physics teacher.
Not sure that would be allowed now.
No, I'm not sure it would. But
I'm glad it was.
Slightly simpler times.
Yeah. So how do you tell me just briefly the journey from trying to blow things up in your garden as a child or a teenager to getting into the industry? What was that route?
Well, the route was once I'd realised that there was this department at the BBC that made all this stuff, because up to this point I knew I wanted to do something that was with miniatures and models.
Yeah.
And I had sort of decided that I was going to be the guy who made all the miniature dioramas in a museum like the Natural History Museum.
Okay.
Because there were these beautiful behind glass forced perspective dioramas of prehistoric scenes or medieval scenes. Every time I visited a castle in Wales, there was always a beautiful glass case with a model of what that castle looked like in its heyday. And that's what I wanted to do, because I figured that was the only outlet I had for this model making talent. Because I was a kid who built things out of Lego and Meccano and Airfix kits and all the rest of it. And it was Pebble Mill at 1 interviewed Bernard Wilkie and Jack Kine, I believe it was, from the effects department. And they demoed some of the models from Blake 7. And suddenly you realise, well, you can not only build these things, but you can film them. And it did. It's like, oh right, there's another outlet for this. So I started to experiment. I used to borrow my dad's Super 8 camera. And I would try and film scenes. But I was also very lucky in that just down the road from us, a neighbour was a gentleman called DJ Thomas, who was the head of drama at BBC Wales. And he said to me one day, well, I'm good friends with Michael John Harris at the BBC's visual effects department. So he put us in touch. And I got to visit the effects department in the early 80s when they were in prep for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And they gave a lot of very, very encouraging advice on what I needed to do, and they recommended that I did theatre design because it gave you a multi-discipline background, a bit of sculpture, a bit of costume, a bit of stage management, a bit of lighting, the ability to work to a deadline, the ability to work with actors and things going wrong, and they said, well, if you do this course, or do a course, we'll keep you on file, and when you've done it, come back, and if there's a job going, we'll let you have a job. And true to their word, I did get a job. They said, I phoned them up and said I finished my course. They went, yep, you're on file. I got a job at the effects department as a holiday relief assistant, so doing 2 weeks basically covering for people when they were on holiday. And that was it. I was there 20 years. So I joined the effects department, and not quite my first job, but one of my first jobs was building a model TARDIS for Colin Baker's Trial of a Time Lord series. Nice. And, I can remember phoning my mum and going, all those cardboard TARDISes I used to make in my bedroom out of, cereal packets and film them hanging on string. I'm building the TARDIS for the new series of Doctor Who. It's quite a surreal experience. Yeah. Just to go from fan making it to professional,
to the other
for want
side,
of a better word.
Crossed over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the time, of course, admitting that you were a fan of Doctor Who whilst in the BBC and working on Doctor Who was a sure way of getting thrown off it pretty quickly. So it was something I kept very, very quiet. In fact, I think even when I sort of first got onto Doctor Who, I think I'd been asked, well, you've worked on a lot of different things at the effects department. Is there anything you haven't done? And I think, I seem to remember that there's a show called Doctor Who. I've not done science fiction yet. Maybe I'd like to try that. Knowing full well that that's what I wanted to work on. They went, oh yeah, you'll work on Doctor Who then. Okay, we'll allocate you to Doctor Who. You'll work with Mike Kelt on Trial of the Time Lord. And Mike just goes, oh yeah, we need a new model of the TARDIS, go. Bang.
Brilliant.
So lovely, you know.
So is that your TARDIS being sucked
spinning
into
the space station?
Oh, amazing!
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
I love that shot.
So that's within a year of me joining the effects department.
Yeah. It's not a bad way to go a year in, is it?
No, it's not. And of course, I then went on and worked not just with Colin, but pretty much all the Sylvester's run before the series gets taken off the air.
Well, at least you joined it at
Before
that
that
point.
had happened, yes, exactly.
Rather than
Just after.
we'll assign you to it. Oh, it's cancelled.
Yeah.
So you did all right. And how about the transition into Red Dwarf then? Where did that come from?
Well, Red Dwarf was just one of those weird things. It's a show. We used to have this an office at the effects department called the allocations room, and it had a massive board that across the top were days, weeks, months of the year, and down the left-hand side were the name of everyone who worked in the department. Yeah. Designers at the top, assistants at the bottom. And every show that came in, you'd have a piece of tape put against your name. So such and such a designer, Matt Irvin, Colin Mapson, is working on such and such a show for X number of weeks, this location filming, this studio filming, this prep.
Right.
And then all the assistants who are working with him had equivalent tape put next to their names, so that you could walk into the office and at any one point you could see who's working on what. And one day, against Peter Ragg's name, was this tape, and it just said Red Dwarf. And I know enough about my, astronomy, and well, that must be a science fiction show.
Yeah.
Somebody said, yeah, but it's a comedy. It's just 6 episodes. It's a sitcom coming out of BBC Manchester. And it's like, oh, well, it might be fun. And that was literally the inauspicious start. I think I did a little bit of work on the food machines, myself and Rocky.
Yeah.
And then I was asked, would I go down to Peerless Motion Control Studio in Covent Garden and help out doing a bit of extra detailing and work on this model of the Red Dwarf, which had been put out to an external contractor.
Right.
So I went down, and suddenly you go, well, this show could be pretty good. It's got some money being spent on it, the model work looks pretty good, and it just snowballed from there. And really by the time we'd finished doing series 3, I think we knew that we had something that was a new BBC sci-fi show.
Yeah.
But when it started, we honestly didn't think it would last more than a year. It was like a Comeback Mrs. Noah or something like that. It was a show that would turn up, go on the schedules and probably vanish, and it didn't. It just kept going. But what also happened is it coincided with an influx of relatively new, young effects assistants. Myself, Nick Cool, Paul McGuinness, Rocky, all of whom had grown up as fans of Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Doctor Who. We were the first intake into the effects department who were fans of the work that the department itself had been doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think they quite knew what to do with it.
No. Interesting effect there, I think.
Yes.
Amplifying it.
But also all the old boys who were there didn't really like doing models because they liked going out on location, because location was where there were big explosions, there was beer, and there were girls. So all the model work was put out to outside contractors. So myself and Rocky said to Peter Ragg, why are you putting all these models for Red Dwarf out? We'll build them for you. Really? Yeah, we'll do that. We'd love to do that. All right. Starbug hangar, guest spacecraft. So suddenly, all the work that had been going out started to come in-house again. We also got very friendly with the cameraman that we'd worked with on Trial of a Time Lord and Red Dwarf Series 1, who was a young cameraman called Peter Tyler.
Yes.
And Pete Tyler...
Familiar name somehow, I think, yeah.
And Peter said, well, if you will employ me, I will set up and build my own motion control unit, and I'll come and work in your model stage instead of you having to come to us. So this little sort of team started to build up on about season 3, and it went on. It just snowballed. And we were very lucky in that, as I sort of alluded to earlier, Peter Ragg was very generous with sharing techniques. This is how you fly a model. This is how you do a takeoff sequence. This is the speeds you need to be shooting at.
So he really was handing down all those years of experience.
Exactly, because Peter used to fly Thunderbird 2. He is the guy running across the top of the set, keeping his arms steady. So he taught us all those techniques. how you wired a spacecraft model up to tungsten wires, how you fixed a tungsten wire if it snapped, how to send charges down the line for pyros to be set off, how you used smoke candles and stuff for air-to-air photography, how you did water tanks in front of models for underwater photography. So we were on Red Dwarf 3, 4, 5, 6, effectively running a unit almost like Peter had been running at Century 21.
Amazing.
So we learned a hell of a lot in a very short space of time.
And what was Peter like? Because he's one of those sort of slightly unsung heroes in the kind of Century 21 world.
He's quite quiet. He was quite quiet. I mean, that was the thing about Peter, is that he was quite happy to let his assistants sit back and do the work. I think there was a certain amount of, well, if they want to work, till midnight making this look really, really good, but my name goes out of it as the effects designer, I'm not going to stop them.
Maximum efficiency there, that's very sensible.
So it was interesting, there's a question of, well, were you being used? No, we weren't. We were learning our craft.
Yeah.
So everyone's getting something out of this. So I never begrudged Peter the fact that he'd go off down the bar and leave us to build the models, because he'd then come back and show us, okay, right, so puffing out wires with powder paint and stuff, myself and Nick and Rocky, we use exactly the same techniques now.
Yeah.
We're using them. We used them this year. On the Sharda remake, it's exactly the stuff that Peter taught us, and I'd never have known any of that.
Yeah. And that's really come off the stages at Century 21.
Yes. You can literally see pictures of Peter and Tony Harding and Ian Scoones puffing out wires and doing stuff, and I look at photographs of me and my crew doing it on stages at Shepperton and Pinewood, 30, 40 years later, and you can put them side by side and nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love the flow that comes through the connections. Because you also, into that mix, you throw in new techniques like 3D printing and fully digital cameras and back projection techniques and all the new stuff, motion tracking and motion capture. They're all just new tools that you add, but you don't throw out all the old tools.
Exactly, you layer them up.
You just keep layering them in.
Yeah, it's as we were saying half an hour ago, it's just using the right tools for the right job.
Exactly.
And using the new digital tools to do stuff that can't be done with models. Or,
exactly.
Or
where models need some help.
Yeah, exactly. More recently, Mike, well, I say recently, it's been a little while in the making, but we've been doing some bits and pieces on a project, haven't we?
Indeed.
Called Firestorm. And for those of you who don't know, we're premiering the Firestorm minisode at MCM Comic Con London on the 27th of October, and Mike is going to be on the panel imparting his wisdom and telling amusing anecdotes from the stage.
Hopefully.
Can't guarantee
if I can get a word in past Mr. Begg.
Oh, well, you've got Nick Briggs moderating.
Oh, then I haven't got a chance.
Steve Begg, I mean, good luck.
Yeah.
No, it'll be lots of fun, so I hope you can all join us there. What was your initial feeling, Mike, when this was mentioned? I can't even remember quite what our initial conversation was like.
Well, I have a feeling that it was Steve that put me forward, because Steve was originally going to be the effects supervisor on Firestorm, and he wasn't available because he was in the middle of, was it Spectre?
Would have been Spectre, yeah.
It was Spectre. So he had mentioned my name, and I think we met up and just initially...
We had breakfast in Shepherd's Bush.
Yes.
And I had a terrible hangover. Yeah, I remember now.
That's right. We had a fry up in Shepherd's Bush, and we just chatted about my background, my love of Gerry Anderson stuff, because I wasn't sure whether you were aware that I knew and was an aficionado of it.
Never like to assume, but it was good to hear.
And it just seemed like a perfect fit for what we'd been doing at the model unit.
Yeah.
It was a challenge because you were effectively either self-funding or kickstarting it.
Yeah.
Kickstarter project to get the backing. It was ambitious, but not overly ambitious, so I felt it could be done. And as I said, it just was one of those projects that you hope is going to land in your lap. because I've missed all the Anderson shows. By the time Space Precinct came along, I was ensconced in the BBC. There was no way I was going to be put out to that. And then by the time I could potentially have pitched an Anderson project, they'd gone digital.
Yeah.
So the idea that a proper old-fashioned Gerry Anderson show with everything that comes with that was something we could work on, appealed enormously. I think the island miniature that we ended up doing was one of the stretch goals. It wasn't even actually something that we were originally going to do.
Yeah, I think, originally this whole thing was going to be like a 60-second
That's right.
teaser, and that was it. And it was going to be, the puppets doing a couple of things, like 1 or 2 puppets.
Yes, and it just kept expanding and expanding.
And became the mini-so that it is now.
So yeah, it gave us an opportunity to sort of get to know each other, I suppose, in terms of what can I do, do we work together well, did I work with Steve well? Because by that point I think Steve had come off Spectre and then decided he was going to direct.
Well, actually back then he was still going to, he was going to be an effects supervisor again.
Yeah.
But he wanted you guys to do the model side. And then somebody wasn't available to direct.
That's right.
And Steve,
and
and I asked him and he went, oh, maybe, all right then. I mean, full of enthusiasm for it. So it's really like evolved in every way. Who's been involved and what their roles have been. Yeah. It's crazy.
And yeah, once we knew what we were doing, and once we started to see the designs coming through from Eric and some of Steve's original designs and the early puppet tests and some of the maquettes that were done, you could sort of see the way it was going to go. And I think I started throwing some ideas into the mix at that point, all the concept art. I started doing, we could do an island like this. Yeah. And it was trying to basically cut our cloth to, can we do something that looks great, looks very Anderson-y, looks impressive, but isn't going to kill the budget?
Yeah, and the budget was tiny.
The budget was tiny.
I don't want to put numbers to it because it's, grim to put numbers to stuff, but yeah. I think if we'd done what we've done full budget, it would have cost 15 times probably what it has.
But we were lucky, we had access to certain resources and bits and pieces left over from other jobs.
Yeah.
You had some very generous and talented model makers giving an awful lot of their time for free.
Huge amount.
And what we ended up with was a kit of parts that was sort of more than I think we could have hoped for.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then even when we were making it, it still evolved further. I still remember standing with you looking at the storyboards and going, well, this Martian research craft, how are we doing that? And you said, it'll be on a screen where, well, I can build something for you as long as you don't mind what it looks like.
Wasn't that like 10 days before we were shooting?
Yes.
It was very close.
Well, I think it was when we were shooting. I think I went back to the workshop, built it over a couple of days, came back and went, will that do? And we shot it the same day.
Yeah. That's the way to do it though.
But it was a question of, well, I know what I have back in the workshop, and I know what would come up with something that's an Anderson-y sort of looking thing.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the thing. Once you've got that love of the show, there's a shorthand in terms of shapes and colours and graphics and typefaces that you immediately know, well, if I do that, it's going to look Anderson-y.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Rocky was obviously one of my top chief guys on Firestorm. And Rocky, that's what he was trying to do with Red Dwarf. He said, we need to approach Red Dwarf like an Anderson show. The Red Dwarf is red, Blue Midget is blue, Starbug is green,
Those big, strong, bold colours.
Big, strong, bold colours. And Rocky always goes, and then an obvious front, an obvious back. It's immediate from the shape. Bang, there it is. Oh, that's the Starbug. And he's right, and so he's the perfect person to have on board a project like this. But I think across the board, Steve Begg's got that same. He understands his Anderson stuff.
Of course,
he understands what it's got to look like to feel Anderson-y.
Yep.
Anderson-y, stroke medding, stroke trim, all these design choices. Rocky does that. Dave Tremont does. All the model makers. I think you knew. Oh, well, if it's this shape and this colour, it's going to evoke Thunderbird 3 or Thunderbird 2 or Thunderbird 1.
Yep.
So that shorthand suddenly becomes very, very useful on something that you're doing fast and cheap.
Yes.
Because you don't need to explain to somebody, oh, well, in this show called Captain Sky, you just go, make it look a bit like the SPV, and they know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, there was definitely a vibe of that. Yeah, give me a Meddings satellite, that kind of thing.
And you and I think, had spoken about if the island could have a vague feeling of another famous island, that wouldn't be...
I don't know what you mean, Mike. I don't know of any famous Anderson islands.
Indeed. And then blow it up.
Yeah, exactly. It was fitting, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Steve said to me several times during the shoot that it was the closest feeling he'd had to Terrorhawks and the enjoyment that he had on Terrorhawks, and of any of the projects he'd worked on, including that and since. And I feel like there was a kind of cottage industry, everyone shucking in kind of feeling. Did you get that?
Yes, but I mean, I was very lucky in that we discussed who should shoot the model work, and I put forward Peter Tyler.
Yep.
And Peter immediately goes with Spike as his gaffer,
yep.
And we had Phil Clark as the spark. So I was very comfortable because I had a team that I knew could deliver for you, and that Peter's very good at just getting it right in terms of knowing what it is he's aiming for. And again, he's got the right shorthand.
Yeah, yeah.
We'd worked together a lot on Doctor Who, Red Dwarf. But Peter had also been a trainee at Archidon under Brian Johnson. So again, there's this lovely, excuse me, circular connection with all the various Anderson shows.
Yeah, yeah.
And once Peter came on board and actually convinced you that he could also shoot puppet work,
Yeah.
everything had a coherent whole to it.
Oh, it really
that
did.
Was just ideal.
Yeah, yeah. He really knew how to get those puppets looking their best, and the lighting stuff that he did is just beautiful. So.
And we worked, I mean, given that we'd never worked with Steve, and given that Steve traditionally has had his own team of people,
yeah,
it's nice to hear that we sort of gave him a comfort factor, because we did enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know,
it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a really good 2 weeks, and Richard and his team, I mean, they worked their socks off on those sets.
They did.
McKinnon and Saunders did an extraordinary job on the puppets. You know, the models that were turning up were pretty much screen ready.
Yeah.
Pretty much every single one of them. You know, we had a water tank, we had space stuff, we had a Mars landscape.
Which didn't make the cut, annoyingly.
Didn't make the cut, but we got some better stuff out there anyway, you know. We got a really nice bunch of stuff out of it, and it came together really well, and the final thing feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It has a cohesive, exciting feel, and I keep hearing people saying, well, either a mixture of stuff like it's nostalgic but new and contemporary. Somebody else summarised it, just said this is perfect for anybody who loved those old shows and anyone that doesn't.
Yes, because
I mean, it can't do better than that, can we?
It's got the ethos of the old shows and the sound and the music, but the pacing and the digital tweaks that we can add to it give it a modern sensibility, and trying to balance those two is a tricky thing, which you and Steve presumably spend a lot of time trying to work out how far you push each one.
Yeah. There's every stage of it has had pushing too far and then pulling back and trying to find the middle ground just to get it right. So it's been a lengthy
fundamentally,
process.
You look at it and you go, there is only one stable that could have produced that.
Yeah.
From the logo to the puppet look to the music to the dialogue, everything feels, as you say, nostalgic but weirdly modern at the same time.
Yeah.
So you hope that everyone else is watching that and feeling the same way. I know some of the sort of test audiences that, you know, we had some kids come into the studio who were entranced by the puppets.
Yeah. Well, the kids say things like, I feel like I'm part of the action, and I don't know why. And this loops right back to what you were saying up front. I think that a kids' audience is so used to CG, 2D animation, they're perfectly willing to accept it, and some of it looks amazing, and they you know, they completely accept that at face value, but the minute they're introduced to the real, even though it's through a screen, their brains are engaged in a different way. It's behaving in a real way.
It's not just kids. I mean, I have this problem with producers and directors all the time. If they come into the industry after a particular period, they've not been brought up with a non-digital way of doing it. They've never known non-digital. It's always been there. And so the concept that you can do it a different way and get good results out of it sometimes takes them a little bit by surprise. And I can remember sitting down and showing my show reel to a producer, and on it is the Trial of a Time Lord sequence with the space station and the fly through and the TARDIS coming in. And he just said to me, he said, "That's the best CG I've ever seen." And it's like, but there's nothing computer generated in that shot. It's all miniature. And you could see that it just did not compute.
Yeah.
It's like you could get that level of detail and complexity into a CG model. It would cost you a fortune.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You can do a cheap knockoff of it, really cheaply. Any PC can do it, but the level of detail in that shot.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lovely, lovely shot. I can visualize it almost precisely now because it's so striking.
Yes.
But the fact that shots like that and model work like that can grab and engage somebody, whether or not they understand how it was done.
Yes.
It just shows how strong it is doing it that way.
And to me, I'm not anti-CG. I'm
nor am I,
anti-CG
for the
being
record.
used in the wrong context.
Yes.
And one of my favourite films is still Jurassic Park, which, even though it's one of the earliest CG-heavy films, their mix of when to go practical and when to go digital, when to go real, when to go miniature, when to go full digital, when to go partially digital, is so well informed because Phil Tippett sits across all of it as a man who understands character and movement. So you don't care whether it's CG or puppet, you just care that the raptors are scary, that the T-Rex is a character, and suddenly everything else fades into the background because you're engaged with it. And you don't think, oh, I wonder if they've just cut from the CG raptor to the real puppet raptor. You don't care, you just go, holy crap, there's a raptor in the kitchen chasing those kids. And the fact that they're cutting back and forth between digital and real puppet, and you can't spot it, I think it's a testament to how well that film was made and the fact that it still holds up. Whereas films that came later that went all digital or all miniature and it was the wrong choice don't always hold up as well.
Yeah, totally with you. It's the right method for the right time and the right shot.
And if you can mix those, and the lovely thing that we have at the moment is that, right, well, let's shoot that model but against green or with rods, or we can shoot the pyro separately and comp that in and then the flames will scale properly, or water splashes.
Yeah.
Suddenly, everything is open to you because you've got all these tools to play with.
Yeah. And that's what we've done.
And that's what we've done with Firestorm.
And we'll do it even better for the full series, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of being able to do an entire series worth of this and build on it, you know, to know that sort of once you've done episode 1, those assets are available to you for episode 2. By the time you got to episode 6 or 7, and again, when you look back at the classic Anderson shows, Captain Scarlet in particular, some of the cityscapes that they were making towards the latter end of that, because they had so many building assets to use.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. It'd just be amazing to populate this world of Firestorm, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are closing in on our time, Mike. So, in fact, just briefly, we've done a non-Anderson thing sort of together, haven't we?
We have.
We-
For our
we're on the
lovely
same-
friends at Big Finish.
We have, yeah. Order of the Daleks.
Indeed.
Which is a story that Mike wrote and I directed, a Colin Baker story. Highly recommend you go and check it out.
Yeah,
obviously.
came out fantastic cast. We got a dream cast as far as I was concerned.
Well, it's because you pretty much cast it and I just went out and did
And
it
you
for
got them. You got them all. It was lovely.
Yeah, John Savardon and
Olivia Hallam.
yeah.
So yes, that was a lovely thing to do.
And a lovely cover on the artwork with the Dalek that Chris Thompson rendered
Indeed. Chris did a fantastic job on that. And again, it was a nice thing having worked together on Firestorm. It meant that we went into this with a sort of, I know Jamie, and Jamie knows strengths, weaknesses.
So we can be rude to each other.
But slightly different strings to both our bows.
Very much so, yeah. I suppose you're going from the physical model effects supervision side to writing, and I'm
writing something with no visuals.
Yeah, and I'm going from wrangling a load of people and puppets to directing, which is the one thing that I probably didn't actually do on
Yes,
Firestorm.
absolutely. But I think it helps. I mean, again, it comes back to what I keep saying, is the shorthand and the comfort that you have with the crew makes life a lot easier, because it allows you to make decisions on the fly.
Yes.
And on something like Firestorm, I have a feeling that we're going to need to be a fairly lean beast in terms of being able to make decisions on the fly.
I agree, but already I know that, if we needed something done and there was no time to design it or go through iterations, that any kind of department really could just say, we need this, and we
can do it.
Yeah, and it'll get done.
Yeah,
because everybody's got that implicit love of Gerry Anderson stuff, so they know it.
And they'll come up with something that you're not going to be embarrassed by.
Yes, hopefully that you'll love it, ideally.
Indeed.
That'd be even better. Mike, this has been absolutely brilliant. I think we could probably do another episode of this. Maybe we will when we're in production on Firestorm, fingers crossed. If people want to find you online, where can they find you?
The Model Unit has a Facebook page. Just look at the Model Unit. We also have an Instagram account, the Model Unit Instagram. That's primarily where I tend to sort of lurk. I'm not a Twitter person as such. But you can also, just keep an eye open. Plenty of things like Red Dwarf DVDs. They're a little behind the scenes pieces with us. Quite a few of the Doctor Who DVDs that are out there as well, or indeed Doctor Who Blu-rays and Red Dwarf Blu-rays that are all coming out now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're going to be involved in that. Find things like Sharda, where there's nice behind-the-scenes footage, and of course keep an eye on the Firestorm HQ sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think you're on everything.
YouTube, we're everywhere.
We crop up here and there on those as well.
Nice
There's always
plug.
links back.
Brilliant, Mike. That's great. You're a star. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I had a lovely time with Mike, as you might.
As I said, you did.
I mean, the
yes.
wine helped, but no, Mike's great company, and he's got so many cool stories. And I just love the fact that we kind of very naturally there's a move from the audience and the industry back towards these more old-fashioned, in inverted commas, techniques.
Yeah.
And something then.
Well, they work. They just work.
Exactly. Well, I think the gist of it is that you use the techniques that work well, and when they fall short, or when you come up against something you can't do, then you go to the sort of the more modern, contemporary digital toolbox, and that's exactly what we're trying to do with Firestorm, and that's why Mike is a great fit for it. So thanks, Mike. We had great fun there.
Now, I see. I remember. I don't know if you're aware of this, Jamie, but I played Officer Orin in Space Precinct.
No, really?
I try not to mention it.
I can't believe you never said anything about this before.
Yeah. Now here's the thing, because my mum always said when I was growing up, she said, "Well, I know when you make it when you're on the front page of the Radio Times." Now, I haven't made the front page of the Radio Times yet, but I have made the inside of the Radio Times, because I remember back in the day, in sort of 1995, when the series was launching, they did a sort of 2 or 3 page spread about it, and they featured me and Lou Hirsch, who played Officer Romek. In a kind of an interview, the men behind the mask. But also coupled with that was a sort of an item about the model makers, and I don't know who they would have been. I don't remember the names. But the reason I'm mentioning that was because there was a specific tower block in one of the episodes which had basically been made out of a stack of sink drainers, that you put your plates and your cups in when you wash them. Plastic sink drainers, about 50 of them, one on top of the other, sprayed grey with some lighting added and a bit of weathering and all that, a few aerials on the top. I know, and it did look absolutely amazing. Shot from, down below looking up at this great tower, it looked like a tower block. And I love that, and it certainly inspired me as a kid, watching Doctor Who and seeing all these great models. I know slightly before Mike's time, but things like I made my own console out of TARDIS console out of various aerosol cans and cardboard, my own K9, things like that. You know, it really does give you a feel that you could have a go yourself. Yep. And lots of Gerry Anderson fans I know are very creative and love to make stuff like that. And I think it gives them inspiration as well to hear from people like Mike. Yeah, that was lovely.
It is brilliant. Nice. Yeah, crafting all the way is very exciting.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Mike and Richard, for your little nostalgic anecdotal moment there about building your own K9 from a matchbox and a box.
I know. I so wish I'd kept them.
You can always build them again.
Well, I think I might.
Anyway, look, Richard.
Yes.
If people haven't subscribed already, they must do that now, right? Subscribe.
Well, of course they should.
And all that stuff.
Of course they should.
Yes.
And
one of the reasons they should subscribe is for one of the highlights of the Gerry Anderson podcast, which is.
Well, it's got to be the randomizer.
I think
randomizer.
It is. And based on the previous run of luck, I mean, we should be getting something brilliant and new again this week. So
let's
hand over to Chris.
Here he is.
Thank you! Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome one and all, and thank you all for coming to the very first Randomizer live show. Yes, I'm Chris Dale, and you of course know my lovely assistant Marina, and as you may also know, we have been travelling the universe of late with this wonderful invention, the Randomizer. Yes, this remarkable machine is preloaded with every single Gerry Anderson television episode ever made. And with a press of the big red button, it will select, at random, an episode for us to watch. Now, many people have asked, why do I do this? Well, because the machine is equipped with an atomic reactor, and once activated, it must select an episode every week, otherwise, it explodes. I know. And recently we have seen an unprecedented run of success on the Randomizer. Every selection made over the last 5 weeks has given us an episode from a series we've not yet seen before, and I'm pretty confident that this week we're going to make it 6 in a row. How about that? I know, it's amazing. Right. Okay, let's find out which brand new series we're going to land on this week. Marina, would you care to do the honours? That's right, thank you, Marina. Well, everybody, where will we land this week? Which as yet unseen Gerry Anderson series will put in an appearance? Perhaps we'll finally get our first UFO episode, or maybe The Protectors. How about some Fireball XL5 or some Secret Service? Or hey, maybe even Dick Spanner or Lavender Castle. Who knows? Who knows? But I see Marina is now approaching me with the printout, and a look of concern on her face. So at last, the moment of truth has arrived. Thank you, Marina. Let's see. Marina, lock the doors. Yes, all the doors, quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, I have bad news. And I have worse news. The bad news is that our run of new series on the Randomizer has come to an end, for now at least. Today, we have drawn an episode from a series that we have already seen. The worst news is that series is Torchy the Battery Boy. Escape is impossible! Those of us who survive will be able to tell our children and our grandchildren that we stared directly into the maw of Gerry Anderson hell, and we wet ourselves in terror. And now, let's all watch Bossy Boots Goes to Topsy-Turvy Land. Good luck, everyone.
Well, it had to happen sooner or later. Here we are with episode 8 of Torchy the Battery Boy, Bossy Boots Goes to Topsy-Turvy Land. I hate my life, I hate my life, I hate my life. Oh. This spotlight sort of waving around Mr. Bumbledrop's house kind of reminds me of the opening of Captain Scarlet a bit. I'm assuming it's a spotlight being shined on him by the police or the authorities or something. Okay, come on out, Bumbledrop. We got the place surrounded. We know what you've been doing with those kids in your garden. Oh no, we've hit rock bottom already and I haven't even started yet.
Mr. Bumbledrop was walking along the road with his dog, Pom-Pom the poodle.
His mind was filled with sinister thoughts.
Pom-Pom, I was very lonely when the big wind came and blew you into the sky.
Oh yes, here we are back with
why I made Torchy and sent him up in a rocket.
Torchy the Battery Boy story arc again. Evidently, Mr. Bumbledrop is now in Topsy-Turvy Land, I think.
There's a little girl in your garden, and she's kicking
Oh, no, we're back on Earth, okay.
her feet on the grass.
Oh, goodness. That sounds like Bossy Boots. She's always stamping her feet and bossing everyone around. But
well, she shouldn't have been named Bossy Boots then. If she's just going to be given that name, it's it's the fault of the parents, really. I blame the parents.
Go and tell her that the toys haven't.
If Mr. Bumbledrop doesn't find my rag doll and all the other toys, I'm going to pull out all the flowers and break the seesaw and the swing.
No, Bossy Boots. That's not a nice thing to say.
I'm not a nice little girl, and I want Flopsy. Give her to me at once.
I haven't got your rag doll.
Yes, you have. You found Pom-Pom the poodle, so you must have found the other toys as well.
I didn't find Pom-Pom. Torchy the Battery Boy found her.
I didn't go looking for my own lost dog. I created an abomination of nature to go and do the job for me. Be fair.
Just like a real live boy.
What a silly old man you are. Toys can't walk and talk.
Oh, I wish that were true, but unfortunately, we have 26 episodes of this nightmare to get through.
He's talking. Of course I'm talking, you horrid girl.
Yeah, you just keep him there. We'll get the flamethrower.
My rag doll. If I don't get her, I'll take Torchy instead. You can't have me, and you can't have your rag doll either. All the lost toys live on a twinkling star, and they never want to come back and belong to naughty
I do kind of like the fact that Torchy is
living on their own.
so smart, Alec. He knows everything about everything, and he says it in such a condescending tone of voice, sort of, I'm better than you at everything.
They're not. Yes, they are. Don't answer me back.
Oh dear, he's trying to kill... Right, Torchy is trying to kill Bossy Boots.
I'm going to tell my daddy of you.
Yes, I'm sure she's the naughtiest girl in the world.
Well, be fair, we're only 8 episodes in. You haven't really given Torchy a chance yet to unleash his true evil. And he will.
What a wonderful idea, Mr. Bumbledrop. I know how we can teach Bossy Boots a lesson.
Well, let's go inside for tea, and you can tell me what you mean.
Oh dear, this can't end well. This is going to be ending with them drawing up a list of various sharp implements and saws and things with which to take her apart.
And the toys will teach her to behave herself.
Yes, well, they'll never be able to do that, I'm afraid.
No. I've tried abducting children before. It never ends well, believe me, Torchy.
You see, it's Topsy-Turvy Land, where everything's upside down. And grown-up people and children become as small as toys.
Well, I never.
That's just one more reason Topsy-Turvy Land is an utter abomination and has to be destroyed with fire. I don't even know why I let you come home, Torchy. I would have been much better off leaving you behind.
And that's to tell her that she can't do it. No, I'll show her the rocket and tell her she mustn't go for a ride in it. You watch me and see what happens.
I don't want to read bad things into this, but we now have an old man inviting a small child to his garden to show her his rocket. That is literally what is happening. How did nobody involved with making this program get arrested? How?
You're not going up in it. It's much too late, and you should go home.
And I don't really know why I invited you over here at like 1 a.m. I can't imagine there's any legal or ethical reason I can use to justify that, but I'm sure I can come up with something.
Oh, please, Mr. Bumbledrop, let me take Bossy Boots up in the rocket for a little ride.
I'll return her with most of her limbs intact, really I will.
Oh, all right then.
Trying not to laugh,
Bossy Boots is a fairly hideous puppet as well. She seems to have sort of a permanent stoop, and her head looks like it's always about to fall off. Oh, well, now here we have some...
Goodbye, Mr. Bumbledrop.
Yeah, we have some reused footage. All of this footage of the rocket launch is stock footage from episode 1. I suppose it must have been a very difficult shot to reproduce in multiple episodes.
But I want to take you to the Twinkling Star, and then you'll be able to find Flopsy, the rag doll. Look through the window, and you'll see the star now.
Sure enough, there was the star shining brightly in the sky. And Bossy Boots was terribly excited to know that they were going to land on it.
Will we be there soon? I want... Why, Torchy, whatever's happened to you? You've got bigger. I haven't got bigger. You've got smaller. No, I haven't. Yes, you have. You're the same size as I am, and that means you're a toy. I don't believe a word you're saying. Then you better wait until we get to Topsy-Turvy Land. You won't be able to smack Flopsy the rag doll anymore, because she'll be as big as you, and she'll smack you back.
The toys
That's basically what Topsy-Turvy Land is founded on, the principles of smacking. Oh, here we are with our assortment of hideous creatures. There's Squish, there's the ragdoll,
and Squish, the space boy with a water...
Pillywig the Clown, I believe that's Pillywig the Clown. I've not yet encountered him in any of these episodes.
What he looks like.
It's only been a week since he left us. You have got a bad memory, Flopsy.
It's not my fault. It's because I haven't got enough stuffing inside me, and my head is empty.
Oh, what's that noise?
What noise?
Oh, up in the sky. Why, it's the rocket.
Hooray! Torchy's coming back.
Words that nobody has ever previously said. Hooray, Torchy's back.
I feel so happy now that Torchy's here again.
Why?
Hip, hip, pickle, poggle.
Well, I hope he's going to stay longer this time. Torchy laughs at my jokes more than anyone else.
Oh my god, this clown puppet's eyes are hideous. He's got sort of... They're slightly recessed. They're not just black dots painted on the puppet. They're sort of sunken, almost like... It's almost like... Oh, the Cybermen in the 10th Planet. You know, where you can see the original eyes poking through. That's what this clown looks like. That's chilling.
Bossy Boots, let's go meet her. I'm not going to meet a rag doll. I can see...
I want my rag doll, but I don't want to actually meet the rag doll. I'm quite stupid.
You've got to listen to me. No, I haven't. Yes, you have. I'm bigger than you are, and I'll push you over. You're not bigger than me anymore, so you better stop being bossy.
I'm not entirely sure of the chances of this plan succeeding. They've reduced Bossy Boots in size ever so slightly. I don't know if that's really enough to stop a bully from carrying on bullying.
It's Bossy Boots. Go away, you piggle-poggle girl. Don't you tell me to go away, you stuffed doll. I'll pull all your stuffing out if you're not careful. You can't do that anymore.
Well, you can pull your stuffing out. We established this in whatever episode it was we watched last. Oh God, she lunged for the camera, and we got an upskirt shot of Bossy Boots. That I feel like this is in danger of being confiscated while I watch it.
Buns first. The toys are going to give a party for you, and we have to have some cakes. There we are. I think we've enough cream buns now.
Oh yes, they've picked cream buns from the cream bun tree.
I want to eat them all up myself. Don't be greedy. I'm not greedy. I'm hungry. Then come home and have some bread and butter. I'm not hungry for bread and butter. I'm hungry for cake, and I'm going to eat every one of them. Then you better eat this one first.
Well, this is... I'm not entirely sure this is a good way to teach children how to stand up to their bullies by throwing cream cakes in their face. Aside from the fact that, sadly, we don't live in a world where cream cakes grow on trees. They're very expensive, and this just does not seem an effective method of showing people that they are awful, awful people.
So many naughty children, I don't
Oh,
know
no.
what to do. So many naughty
No, please
children,
don't.
Just you and you and you.
Haven't we suffered enough? Oh, good, she's preparing a cannon. Bossy Boots is preparing a cannon to shoot Torchy. Do it, Bossy Boots. Do it, Bossy Boots. Do it, Bossy Boots. Come on. Come on. Bossy Boots, he's standing behind it. You're not going to get him if he's standing behind it. You have to turn it round. Turn it round. No, don't point it at me. Oh, my God. Ah! Oh, no. No, go away. Go away. Oh, no. Okay, what happened there? What happened there was that, Bossy Boots fired the cannon directly at the camera, which broke up, and it smashed, it shattered, the screen fell in, cut to black, and then the Torchy puppet loomed out of the darkness. Oh no! Oh, is that it? Oh, thank goodness. Well, we ended that with a literal attempt to break the fourth wall. That was even more unsettling than the previous episode of Torchy. I do vaguely remember seeing that episode before at some point, but I was completely unprepared for the cannon and the screen literally breaking up. I've seen horror films that end like that. Isn't there like a zombie film or something that ends with the screen cracking up and caving in like that? This was scarier than that. I'm going to have a lie down now. I'm going to have a lie down. I'm going to have a good cry. But at least I know that, hopefully, the randomizer won't be cruel and land on an episode of Torchy again next week. Or will it? Nothing is certain anymore.
Oh, Chris.
I mean, that was... Oh, I think I'm filling up, actually.
Yeah, I actually...
That's quite emotional, wasn't it?
Well, I just feel so bad for Chris. I mean...
I know. How does he do it? How does he put himself through that? I just think it's amazing. I couldn't do it.
Well, thankfully he's there so we don't have to, but...
It's very brave, Chris. Well done for doing... he does this sort of thing so we don't have to. That's the thing, isn't it?
Chris, thank you for insulating us from direct exposure to Torchy. I mean, Bossy Boots, she's just so annoying.
Yes, imagine having a friend like that.
Yeah. Anyway, as Chris said, if her parents wanted to be better behaved, they shouldn't have called her Bossy Boots. I mean, that's,
That's nominative... I can't even say it this time in the morning. You know the phrase I mean, don't you?
Oh, nominative... Determinism, yeah.
Nominative.
Yeah. I was trying to say finger sandwiches to Nick Briggs about afternoon tea a little while ago.
Well, I know about this already.
I couldn't say finger.
Why ever not?
I just kept saying finguous over and over again. Finguous sandwich. No, for finguous
No. You see, I once worked with someone who couldn't say the word equals, and he would say equals.
Ooh.
I know.
That's like
yeah. I didn't ever say anything.
Pacific, isn't it? Can you be more Pacific?
That's right. Well, no, I can't be like a big C. No.
Anyway. Yes, it's...
So thank you, Chris. That was great. Another comment here that you'll like, Chris. This is from Cox61171 that was left on iTunes. A brilliant podcast taking me back to my youth. Both presenters are full of fun, and I especially enjoyed Chris and the Randomizer. Keep up the great work, fellas.
Thanks very much, person with long
so
numbering name.
You can comment. Yes, please do leave your comments on the iTunes site or on YouTube or on Stitcher or on wherever you're listening to us. We'd love to read your comments. Get in touch with us at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. You can tweet us. I'm Jamie Anderson or Richard N. James. Do hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. Take a screenshot of whichever platform you're listening to on your device, and post it, tweet it, tell us you're listening, and that would be lovely, because we just feel so much more wanted, don't we, Jamie?
Yes, and that is very important.
Very important. It's all about us.
We're super needy. So thanks for feeding that. Anyway, look, I really hope that next week's Randomizer is not more torchy, because it's borderline unbearable.
I know, poor Chris. Yeah.
So yes, send us positive vibes to not have any more of that nonsense.
Because that'll work.
Yeah, but it's a nice idea, isn't it? Until then, go over to the Firestorm pages, please. Firestorm HQ on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. SF9 Firestorm on Twitter. There's lots more stuff coming, video content, all sorts. And that's it, isn't it? We'll see you or speak to you next week.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe see you on Fab Live and catch up with you soon.
Yeah.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right, so
nice.
what are you doing with your day?
Great. Well, I suppose I better get dressed.
Probably should.
Although, actually, I say that, I haven't actually got to get dressed at all. So I might just ooch around.
Douche around?
Ooch around,
Ooch around. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, for a little bit.
Good. By the way, have you seen Pip Madeley's John Pertwee, Doctor Who's Got a Filthy Mouth on Twitter?
No. Oh, look at that.
Really
I do follow him,
good.
so look at that. Yeah.
I love Pip stuff. I hope eventually he'll do a Captain Scarlet, Colonel White's Got a Filthy Mouth edit.
Yeah.
That would be great
nice.
fun.
All right.
I'll let you go. Have a lovely day. Have a great, snoozy, relaxed day in the dressing gown. Don't get dressed. Bum around, pick your nose, whatever.
Okay, well, have a lovely day. I'll speak to you
Bye,
soon.
Richard.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.